Welcome, welcome, welcome to Leadershipization, all things leadership. I'm Beth Bergen. I'm a leadership and communication coach, and I work with executives and managers and business owners and their teams of staff quite often to identify those leadership and communication challenges that can come up. Now, last week we started a topic that is often front and center when I'm doing coaching sessions with my clients, and that's about the different styles of leadership. And last week, what we looked at was transactional leadership, autocratic leadership, and transformational leadership. And the intention is that you identified which of those or what particular aspects of those styles of leadership were going to be things that you could adapt and utilize in your own leadership toolbox. So I'm going to continue with this a little bit today by looking at three more. I'm going to look at democratic, I'm going to look at servant leadership, and I'm also going to look at laissez faire leadership. So I'll go through each of those and discuss some of the positives and perhaps some of those weaknesses, all, as I said earlier, with the intention that you actively identify which of these are worth exploring for me to use in my leadership toolbox. So let's start with democratic leadership. Now, this is by far the most popular style of leadership. Why? Because it's all about participation and collaboration. And this is where the team culture that you create is the most valuable thing. It's the most important thing of all. And so what happens when you're running a team from a democratic leadership perspective is that there's a lot of exchange of ideas. People are really motivated and they're really engaged. And what happens is that we absolutely let everybody know that their participation makes a huge difference. And when we let them know that their participation does make a difference and it's important, you'll find that more and more people will contribute. They're happy to voluntarily contribute and they start to solve problems by themselves. So, democratic can actually be quite empowering for people. It opens up those communications, it opens people up and teams up to ideas and to being more creative. And what we know is that that all then contributes back to a real sense of collaboration. And so if your team are collaborating with each other, it's much easier for them to go out there and collaborate with other teams. So the other thing that I like about the democratic style of leadership is that people are equal no matter what the role is. They're equal. And it really, as I said, it really empowers them. What's key for you if you are to adopt some of this approach to your leadership is that listening is a really vital skill for you to have. It's important that you are listening to what your team is saying to you. The other thing that everyone likes about this style of leadership is that it's very quick to acknowledge and to reward participation. So where people are getting actively involved, yep, the democratic leader is identifying that and acknowledging that. So what might be some of the weaknesses of this style? Well, when we're democratic and we're seeking the opinion of everyone else, what can happen is that we're not so decisive. Uh, and what that means is that where issues are time sensitive, they're going to need a different approach. And that might mean that you need to adopt one of your other leadership skills because being democratic and collaborating is always going to take time. It also can create it can create tension between different perspectives and different opinions. And so, again, if you're in the leadership role, you're going to need to use a different aspect of leadership. But it's in order for you to use democratic successfully, it's pretty important that when you start using this style, your team is already really motivated and pretty committed to the task. They're excited about being a member of the team anyway, and this helps you to move them, empower them so that they become a little more autonomous and they're better at collaborating and feeling comfortable in the group. Okay, so that's democratic. The second one that I want to look at today is servant leadership. This is quite, you'll see that there's quite a lot of conversation about servant leadership at the present time. What is it? What's so special about it? Well, it's focused primarily on addressing the needs of the employee and of the clients. So it's really put a very heavy focus on learning and growth, the growth of the employees, the growth of the team, so that they are nurtured and challenged all the time with the view to empowering them. So it's all about people learning to serve others. So you're leading to serve, and what you're anticipating is that others will naturally follow you. So it's very altruistic. And that has a very strong positive influence on the team. You're teaching, you're training, you're empowering, and you're building your team in a way that really builds trust. In order to be a great servant leader, you need to have high emotional intelligence. So if this is a style of leadership that it really resonates with you, what's important is that you start now to do some research and to look at what can I actually be doing to lift my own emotional intelligence. So here, this person is a real positive influence. They've got to come from their heart. It needs to be all about the employee and the client, and not necessarily all about those things that relate just to the business and the dollars and the productivity. Those motivated by dollars or by their ego would find this style of leadership hard to do, because you're circling back around all the time to check to see how your whole team is going. And it's very empowering, and it uses a lot of coaching styles of leadership as its base. So it's really empowering. What can happen? What are the weaknesses? What might be the downside? If you've got people in your team and you yourself are motivated by the dollars and the ego, then this style isn't going to suit you at all, because it's all about everybody feeling very comfortable and good with where they're at. Yeah. The final one that I want to look at today is a laissez faire leadership. And this is a real hands-off style of leadership. So again, it will suit some people, it will suit some teams, it will suit some situations. So this is sometimes called, it's as I said, hands-off, but it's also called delegative leadership, because what you're doing all the time is delegating things. You're giving everyone in your team individual freedom and control over their job. Laissez-faire is French, and it means let it be. So what we're looking at here is minimal involvement, minimal regulation. Staff make their own choices, and they don't have a lot of input from their leaders or their managers. Staff, for example, if staff decide that they don't need to come in Friday because work is complete, then the laissez-faire leader would have no interference in that. Okay, this is what you've decided, right? I'm gonna stick with that. So it's the absolute opposite of autocratic, which is one of the things that we looked at last week. So to be successful in this space, your employees have to be people who can work with a high level of freedom. This laissez-faire leadership builds a really strong sense of trust, and it really encourages a lot of problem solving and decision making. So that rests down with your particular team member. Your job as the leader is to provide them with the resources and the tools that they need to be able to get on and do their job, because it's not about you giving them input or guidance. That's pretty limited. The team and the individuals in it will take responsibility for the things that go wrong, for the unsuccessful choices and the actions. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about laissez faire is that it decreases the amount of pressure that there is on productivity. It's ideal for those who are great at self management. But I think you can probably already kind of sense that if you're working with a team that doesn't have a lot of maturity as a team, and by that I don't mean age necessarily, if you're working with a team who haven't been together for very long and they don't have a maturity and don't know each other really well, then maybe they can't self-manage, or they're not at that point where they can self-manage yet. This laissez-faire style is not for all business models. It's not good if the team isn't full of highly driven, qualified self-starters. Because if you don't have those people, not much gets done. You need those people in your team in order to be able to use this hands-off style. Some of you may have been led or managed by someone with a laissez-faire style, and there's no direction. There's no sense of, I need to do this, I need to do that. Some people don't consider this to be leadership at all. They just don't think that it makes too much sense. So what we've looked at today is democratic, we've looked at servant, and we've looked at the laissez-faire styles of leadership. We've got more to go, which we'll move on to in our session next week. But again, a reminder from me that this is all about you actively listening to what are those skills, what are the kind of traits and behaviors that this leadership style exhibits. Does that sit with me and the kind of role that I'm wanting to take up, or that I'm currently in? And is this what my team is like? Is this going to suit the kind of industry that I'm in? And start to pick those and think, how can I develop this more? Put it in my toolkit. How can I continue to develop it? And when can I be using it? And as I've said before, that's when it can be a really awesome and ideal time for you to think about, maybe I need to be working with a coach. So thank you so much for listening today. If you have any questions or comments, please pop them in the platform below, in the comments below, and I'll make sure that I get back to you. If you're watching replay, #replay would be awesome. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you here again next Tuesday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is 2 p.m. Sydney Australia time. Bye now.